Happy New Year! Or close enough. I know I'm a little late on this, but it's still January. And since it's the start of a new year, I thought I'd clean up some of my old files. And that's when I found a folder of some old artwork. And I do mean old. So I figured why not redraw it and see how far I've come. So this is what I'm gonna redraw. I made this sometime in 2016 or 17, so almost a decade ago. I admit it's a little daunting to redraw old artwork, because there's always that little voice in my head that says, what if I didn't improve that much? Or worse, what if the new one looks way worse than the original? And I think that's a pretty common fear with artists, that we've stagnated or aren't going to improve anymore, or whatever it is. There's always some kind of fear. Art's just kind of like that. But I can recognize that even if my style has changed a lot, my technical skills have improved. I know anatomy a lot better, I understand lighting a lot better, and I think I can make poses that are way more dynamic and a lot stronger than they were. And honestly, the original is still pretty good. I mean, it's in a more cartoony style, but it's not bad by any means. I still like it. And I think that's something that a lot of young artists need to remember too, is that even though you grow and improve, when you look back, you don't need to bash yourself or say how awful your old drawings are, because truthfully, they're not. In fact, they're probably really good for where you were at the time. And I'm not trying to point fingers, but I have seen a lot of really skilled artists who are pretty much on a professional level do this kind of thing, where they look back on old artwork when they do redraws and kind of criticize kind of really harshly how bad it was and how they can't believe they used to draw like that. And I think that's really detrimental, not just to them, but all the young artists who look up to them. And how would you feel as a young artist looking at a professional drawing and them criticizing how terrible their artwork is when it's pretty much on par with what you're able to draw at the time? That wouldn't feel very good. I know that artists are pretty much their own worst critic, but when you really think about it, it's your younger self that you owe everything to. I mean, it was their dedication to their craft that kept you improving. It's the reason that you're where you are now. They're the ones who made it through all the doubt, all the ugly phases, all the hardships of trying to learn all these things. They're the ones who spent hours and hours drawing and researching and studying. It's just really harsh to look at the artwork that your younger self made and say that it's terrible. And I'm not talking about looking back with a critical eye and seeing how you can improve. I'm talking about the people who just tear themselves apart. It's good to look back and see how much you've improved, and of course you'll see all the mistakes you've made, but it doesn't mean that you have to be super critical of it. I mean, if this was a young artist that you didn't know, who was showing you their artwork for the first time, you would definitely be able to have a lighter touch when you're talking about, how they could improve. Sorry about the rant. That's just something I noticed. And I hope we can go into the new year with, maybe a little bit of compassion. I know I'm trying to have more compassion for myself, especially right now. And speaking of right now, I should probably talk about the drawing that I'm actually doing. I really like drawing these puffy skirts with all the frills. I was originally going to make her have a more streamlined skirt, the kind of flatter ones that ballerinas wear, but I couldn't deny the puffy, okay? Plus the design is closer to the original, and I did want to keep more of those elements intact. I also kept her pose the same. The only difference is that I raised her arm above her head instead of having them overlap to clear up her silhouette and give her a stronger pose. So going into coloring, I'm not super happy with the original's colors. I mean, they're fine, but I just kind of wanted something softer. And on top of that, I'm going to try something a little different and use a watercolor brush. I have never used these before in Clip Studio, and it was definitely a bit of a learning curve. But I really wanted this picture to have like a kind of painterly feel, like something that could be hanging up in a dance studio. Plus, I always like experimenting with new brushes. I haven't had a lot of time to just play around like this, so it was kind of a nice break. And the other nice thing about testing out new watercolor brushes is that they're kind of hard to control, so it actually kind of helped me with my perfectionism to just cut loose and draw whatever. And if it's messy, and it kind of adds to the texture, so it turned out good. I really like all the textures that the watercolor creates. I have painted with watercolor in traditional media before, and I really enjoy it. But I gotta admit, I just can't get over not having a undo button, because this is such a lifesaver when it comes to painting. I am not very confident when it comes to traditional media. And as I said before, I do have some perfectionist tendencies, so digital just works a bit better for me. Right now I'm just adding some more texture with this secondary brush. And I'm going to keep most of her colors the same. Like I said, I'll just kind of soften the dress a little bit. I also wanted to add a little bit of messy watercolor spilling over, just to give it more of that painterly look. And to be honest, this is probably how my traditional watercolor would end up looking too. It also adds a little bit of movement, which is nice for a drawing of a dancer. You can imagine her spinning around, twirling. I was also going to give her some blush and eyeshadow. I originally did purple to try and match her dress, but it looked a little tacky, so I'm just going to stick with warm colors. I'm also going to add some blush to her skin and highlights too. Which reminds me, I have to figure out what kind of lighting I want to do for this scene. I was kind of thinking maybe like spotlight or something, as if she's on stage. That's what I was trying to do with the original, but it ended up being a little bit busy. I think I can do better now. So I'm going to start with just some light highlighting on her face, skin, and hair. And then I'll go into the more dramatic shading in a bit. I can also use these really light white highlights to represent glitter. It kind of looks good without the outline too. But I did go back and soften it just a little more, and now I'm going to work on the more dramatic highlights. And for that, it's actually pretty helpful to just cover the whole thing in shadow and then carve out the light parts. I don't usually shade this way, but it can be really helpful for just getting an idea of super dramatic lighting, like if she was under a spotlight. Also, I know the canvas is kind of off-center. Something happened in the recording software, I don't know exactly what, so I salvaged what I could. I'll do better next time. Something that also helps sell the illusion is having multiple layers of shading. So I kind of push and pull the shadows a little bit, go back and forth, and then I wanted to add the really bright highlights. I feel like I could have done more with the texture of her hair and have it more wispy and realistic. But maybe in another 10 years I'll redraw this one and we'll see where I'm at. I kind of prefer that to redrawing the same thing like every year, like some artists do, because it's just a lot harder to see the improvement, especially because like some things are so incremental. At least that's how my journey's been, personally. I know some artists change their style really frequently, and it would be cool to see, you know, every year a different style. So it makes sense for them, but for me, like, I think I'm pretty good with this. Redrawing old art has never been something I was really interested in. I only did this because it's a new year and I really wanted to try it out for once. But I wasn't joking. If YouTube is around in 10 more years and I'm still making videos by then, I will try and redraw this. I think that would be pretty interesting. Now for the background, it's definitely got to be less busy than the original one, so maybe just some cream colored paper, and I'm going to do some lighting effects. Something simple, not too fancy. Maybe next time I'll draw a whole theater in the background or something. So here's the final piece. What do you think? Was there improvement? I think there was. I really like this. And like I said, I still really like the original too. And this is what 10 years of progress looks like. And I'm pretty proud of that. So if you like this video, you can like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. I really like reading your guys' comments. And remember, be nice to your young artist self. They work hard. Till next time.